The small cafe on the corner of Maple Street was nearly empty. Rain drizzled against the windows as Monica, a kind-hearted black woman in her late 30s, sat at her usual table, stirring a cup of tea. She had just finished a long day at the community center where she worked, helping underprivileged children find their way in life. As she glanced around, her eyes landed on a man near the counter, Daniel, a middle-aged businessman in a worn-out suit. He hesitated before the menu, his fingers twitching as he checked his pockets. His face carried the weight of exhaustion, his eyes darting nervously as if doing mental calculations. Monica watched as he sighed deeply and turned toward the exit, something in her heart pulled at her. Without overthinking, she stood up and called out. Daniel turned, startled. He wasn't used to people addressing him these days. His business had collapsed months ago, and he had spent weeks searching for a job with no success. Would you like a meal? My treat. His pride almost made him refuse, but the ache in his stomach made him pause. He swallowed his pride and nodded slightly. That's very kind of you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Monica smiled warmly and gestured toward the table. Come, sit with me. No one should go hungry. As Daniel hesitantly took a seat, something shifted in the air. This wasn't just a meal, it was the start of something bigger. Little did they know, this small act of kindness was about to change their lives forever. Daniel sat across from Monica, his fingers nervously tapping the edge of the table. The warmth of the cafe and the aroma of fresh coffee wrapped around him like a forgotten comfort. It had been weeks since he'd had a proper meal, and now, a stranger was offering him one. Monica smiled as she handed him the menu. Order whatever you like. No restrictions. He hesitated, scanning the menu with weary eyes. Just a coffee and a sandwich, he said quietly. Monica raised an eyebrow. That's all? Come on, get something hearty. You look like you could use it. Daniel exhaled, a small chuckle escaping his lips. It was the first genuine laugh he'd had in a long time. All right. Maybe a bowl of soup too. As the waitress took their order and walked away, Monica leaned forward. I don't mean to pry, but, are you okay? You seem troubled. Daniel sighed, rubbing his temples. Let's just say life hasn't been kind to me lately. Monica nodded. I understand that feeling. But sometimes, life's hardest moments lead to the biggest changes. He looked at her, genuinely curious. You sound like you've been through something similar. Monica smiled softly. We all have our battles. Their conversation flowed naturally, moving from small talk to deeper subjects, dreams, struggles, failures. As Daniel spoke, Monica saw something in him, a man who had once been successful but had lost his way, and for the first time in a long time, Daniel felt heard. Neither of them knew it yet, but this conversation was about to set them both on a life-altering path. Daniel stared at his coffee, watching the steam curl into the air. He hadn't talked about himself in a long time. Not like this. Something about Monica's presence made it easy. She wasn't judging him. She was just listening. I wasn't always like this, he admitted, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. A few months ago, I had a thriving business, a corner office, a team that relied on me. He let out a bitter chuckle. And now, I can barely afford a meal. Monica listened intently, nodding for him to continue. I ran a startup. It was my dream. I put everything into it, time, money, energy. I barely slept, barely saw my family. But I believed in it. And for a while, it worked. He sighed. Then the market shifted. Investors pulled out. Clients disappeared. And just like that, everything crumbled. Monica's eyes softened. That must have been devastating. Daniel nodded. I lost everything, my business, my apartment. Even my relationships suffered. I thought I had friends, but when you have nothing left to give, people disappear. His voice grew quieter. Now, I spend my days looking for job openings and my nights wondering where I went wrong. A heavy silence lingered between them. Monica took a deep breath. You know, I've been there too. Not in the same way, but I've had my share of struggles. Life knocked me down more times than I can count. Daniel looked up, curiosity flickering in his tired eyes. And how did you get back up? Monica smiled. That's a story for another meal. Daniel chuckled. For the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of something he had lost, hope. The diner buzzed with quiet chatter, the clinking of plates and silverware filling the space. Daniel looked around, realizing for the first time how long it had been since he'd sat down for a meal with someone, without the weight of stress crushing him. Monica tapped her fingers against her coffee cup. So, what's your plan now? Daniel let out a dry chuckle. Plan? I'm just trying to survive the next day. Every job I apply for either ignores me or tells me I'm overqualified. It's like no one wants to hire a failed businessman. Monica leaned forward. You built a business from the ground up. That's not failure, it's experience. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Experience doesn't pay the bills. Monica nodded. True. But have you considered that maybe this isn't the end? Maybe it's a new beginning? Daniel scoffed. I appreciate the optimism, but reality doesn't work that way. Monica smirked. Maybe not always. But sometimes, the right opportunity comes when you least expect it. Daniel stared at her, curiosity creeping in. And what, you have an opportunity for me? Monica sipped her coffee, letting the suspense hang for a moment. I might. But first, tell me, if you had the chance to start over, would you take it? Daniel hesitated. The idea of starting over terrified him. But deep down, wasn't that what he wanted? A chance to prove he wasn't just a failure, he exhaled, meeting her gaze. Yeah. I think I would. Monica smiled. Good. Because I have an idea that just might change your life. Daniel leaned in, curiosity flickering in his tired eyes. What kind of idea are we talking about? Monica set her coffee down and folded her arms on the table. You said you used to run a business, right? What was it? He sighed, rubbing his hands together. A small marketing firm. We helped startups get off the ground, branding, social media, strategy. It was my passion, but the pandemic hit us hard. Clients dried up, debts piled on, and before I knew it, I was drowning. Monica nodded, absorbing every word. So, you know how to build things. You understand business, but most importantly, you understand struggle. Daniel let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I understand it too well. She smiled. Good. Because I need someone like you. Daniel furrowed his brows. For what? Monica leaned back. I run a nonprofit that helps struggling small businesses, especially Black-owned ones. I started it because I saw too many people like my parents lose everything just because they didn't have the right knowledge or support. We help with funding, marketing, mentorship, all of it. But the problem is, we don't have enough experts who actually know what these entrepreneurs are going through. You've been in their shoes. Daniel's mind raced. And you want me to? Join me, she said simply. Help me grow this thing. Use your experience to save others from the mistakes you made. Daniel hesitated. It was an opportunity, sure, but was he really in a position to help others when he couldn't even help himself? Monica saw the doubt in his face. I'm not offering charity, Daniel. I'm offering you a chance to turn your failure into something meaningful. But the question is, are you ready for that? Daniel stared at her, heart pounding. This wasn't what he expected when he walked into that diner. But maybe, just maybe, this was exactly what he needed. Daniel sat in stunned silence, Monica's words echoing in his mind. A chance to turn his failure into something meaningful. Was he really ready for that? I don't know, he admitted finally, staring at his hands. It's been so long since I felt useful. What if I mess this up too? Monica tilted her head. Daniel, do you think I started my nonprofit knowing everything? No. I learned. I failed. I kept going. You don't have to be perfect, you just have to care. He let out a deep breath. It's not that simple. She chuckled. You think I don't know that? Look, I'm not saying you have to decide right now. But let's be real, what's your alternative? You're sleeping on park benches, barely scraping by. You told me you used to be a leader. So lead. Help others avoid what happened to you. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. You really believe I can do this? Monica nodded without hesitation. Yes. And I'm not the only one who needs you. There are business owners out there, people fighting to survive, who could learn from your mistakes. You have something valuable, Daniel, experience. And that's worth more than you realize. For the first time in a long time, Daniel felt something other than hopelessness. He felt possibility. What would I have to do? He asked cautiously. Monica smiled, sensing the shift. Come to my office tomorrow. Meet the team. Sit in on a session with struggling business owners. See if it feels right. No pressure. Just a chance to see where you fit. Daniel exhaled slowly. All right. I'll come. Monica grinned. Good. And Daniel? Yeah. This meal you bought me? Best investment you've ever made. Daniel chuckled, shaking his head. Maybe, just maybe, she was right. The next morning, Daniel stood outside the nonprofit office, his heart pounding. The modest building had a simple sign, Pathway to Success, helping small businesses thrive. He took a deep breath and stepped inside. Monica greeted him with a warm smile. Right on time. Ready? As ready as I'll ever be, Daniel muttered. She led him into a small conference room where a group of people sat in a circle. Some looked exhausted, others nervous, but they all had one thing in common, the weight of struggle in their eyes. This is our weekly business survival group, Monica explained. Small business owners who are trying to keep their dreams alive. A middle-aged man spoke up. I'm Marcus. I run a small printing shop, but ever since the pandemic, my clients disappeared. I took out loans, and now I'm drowning in debt. A woman with tired eyes added, I own a bakery. My landlord just raised the rent, and I don't know how much longer I can afford to stay open. Daniel listened, their words striking deep. He had been here. He had sat in these same struggles, only he had no one to guide him. Monica turned to him. Daniel, why don't you share your story? His throat tightened. He hadn't spoken about his downfall in a long time. But looking at these people, he realized, maybe his story wasn't just about failure. Maybe it could be a warning, a lesson. Taking a deep breath, he said, I used to be where you are. I had a thriving business, but I made mistakes. I ignored warning signs, took on too much debt, and didn't ask for help. I lost everything. But if I had something like this, a place to learn, to share struggles, I might have had a chance. The room was silent. Then, Marcus nodded. So, what would you do differently? For the first time in years, Daniel felt something stir inside him, a purpose. The room remained silent, every eye fixed on Daniel. He had never considered himself a speaker, but now, his words held weight. He looked at Marcus, then at the others. If I could do it over, Daniel began, I'd ask for help sooner. I'd focus on the fundamentals, managing cash flow, building relationships, and staying adaptable. But more than that, I wouldn't let my pride get in the way. Monica nodded. That's exactly why we're here. To prevent others from making the same mistakes. A woman across the room, Anita, raised her hand. What did you do after you lost everything? Daniel hesitated. This was the part he had never admitted out loud. I gave up. I let the shame consume me. I cut myself off from everyone I knew, convinced I was a failure. And then, he glanced at Monica, who smiled knowingly. Then, a stranger showed me kindness when I least expected it. The group leaned in. Monica turned to them. That's why mentorship and community matter. Daniel's story isn't unique. Many of us have faced the brink of collapse. But you don't have to face it alone. Marcus sighed. So, what now? I mean, I'm drowning in debt. I don't see a way out. Daniel thought for a moment. The first step is to take control of what you can. Let's break it down. What's your biggest expense? Marcus blinked, surprised by the direct question. Probably rent and equipment maintenance. Daniel nodded. Then let's start there. Maybe we can negotiate with your landlord or find alternative funding. Have you looked into local grants? Monica beamed. That's the spirit. See, Daniel? You already have the skills to help others. Daniel exhaled. For the first time in years, he felt useful again. Maybe this wasn't just about rebuilding his own life, maybe it was about lifting others, too, and maybe, just maybe, his second chance had already begun. As the meeting wrapped up, people lingered, drawn to Daniel's story. Marcus wasn't the only one struggling, others came forward, sharing their own hardships. A bakery owner struggling to stay afloat, a young entrepreneur drowning in debt, a single mother trying to keep her small catering business alive. Monica stepped forward. This is why we created this group. Alone, we struggle. Together, we rise. Daniel had never believed in support groups before. He always thought success was something you had to achieve on your own. But now, looking around at the hopeful faces, he realized how wrong he had been. I want to help, Daniel said suddenly. I don't have money, but I have experience. I know what mistakes to avoid. Marcus grinned. Man, that's more valuable than money. One of the attendees, an older woman named Linda, nodded. Daniel, you've been where we are. That makes your advice worth listening to. Monica smiled. Then let's make it official. We're not just here to vent. We're here to take action. Daniel, you've been given a second chance. Are you ready to help others find theirs? For the first time in years, Daniel felt a sense of purpose. He thought back to the moment Monica had bought him that simple meal. A small act of kindness had changed everything. Count me in, he said. As they talked strategies and solutions, Daniel felt something he hadn't in a long time, hope. Maybe success wasn't just about personal gain. Maybe it was about pulling others up with you. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something greater than himself. In the weeks that followed, Daniel fully immersed himself in the small business support group. He met with struggling entrepreneurs, offering them guidance, helping them restructure their businesses, and even connecting them with potential investors he still knew from his past life. The more he gave, the more he realized how fulfilling it was to help others. One day, Marcus approached him with an idea. Daniel, what if we take this beyond just meetings? What if we start a mentorship program, something structured? Daniel considered it. Like a foundation? Exactly, Monica chimed in. We could create a network where successful business owners mentor those just starting out. Daniel felt a surge of excitement. That's brilliant. But we'll need funding, resources, and people willing to commit. Marcus smiled. You've already got people willing to commit. Look around. Daniel turned to see a growing number of people who had been impacted by the group. Some had already turned their businesses around, while others were still fighting but had newfound hope. That night, Daniel sat down with Monica at her diner. The place had become his second home, a constant reminder of where his journey had begun. I never thought I'd be here, he admitted. A few months ago, I was ready to give up. Monica placed a warm hand on his. But you didn't. And now, you're changing lives, just like yours was changed. Daniel nodded. He knew now that success wasn't just about personal wealth. It was about using what you had to lift others up, and this was just the beginning. Months passed, and the mentorship program Daniel, Monica, and Marcus had started began to flourish. What started as a small support group turned into a full-fledged nonprofit organization aimed at helping struggling entrepreneurs rebuild their businesses and their confidence. Daniel had found a new purpose, one that went beyond financial success. One evening, as he sat in Monica's diner, watching it fill with customers, a familiar sight caught his eye. A man in a wrinkled suit, sitting at a corner table, staring down at his untouched coffee, lost in thought. Daniel recognized that look. It was the same one he had the night Monica first helped him. Without hesitation, he grabbed a menu and walked over. "Mind if I join you?" he asked. The man looked up, surprised, but nodded. "Sure." Daniel sat down, sliding the menu toward him. "Order whatever you'd like." "It's on me." The man hesitated. I can't let you do that." Daniel smiled. "Trust me, I know what it's like to feel like the world is closing in. But sometimes, a good meal and a little kindness can change everything." The man's eyes welled up with gratitude. "Thank you. I really needed this." As the man placed his order, Daniel felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had come full circle. Once, he had been the struggling businessman, saved by a simple act of kindness. Now, he was in a position to do the same for someone else. He looked over at Monica, who was watching the exchange with a knowing smile. She nodded, as if to say, "You get it now," and he did. Because sometimes, a single meal could change not just one life, but many. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and share to spread the message of kindness. Subscribe for more powerful stories that can change lives.